This is the Prayer Culture Podcast, where we talk about building prayer into the lives of Bible-centric churches and individuals. I'm your host, Michael Green. I have a background in missions to the Islamic world, as well as being the founding member of Curamore, a ministry that is dedicated to developing a deep culture of prayer within local churches and communities. My co-host, Patrick Rowe, is a board member of Curamore, as well as being a longtime church planner in the greater Houston area and Thailand. This is the Prayer Culture Podcast. As a reminder, the Prayer Culture Podcast is a ministry of Two or More, which is a crowd-funded ministry. So if you enjoy this content, please check out our website and giving page listed in the description. Also, when you have a second, hit the like and subscribe button. Okay, so you took the fall and thought of me above all. So the controversy here is once again kind of a glory of God question.
Yeah.
Like the cross, is it about me or is it about God's glory?
Mm-hmm.
It's about both, and it can be about both without making God's glory seem like less, is my opinion about this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I used to go to a church it was pretty small actually, but Vodi Bakum started coming to the church, and of course, within like 10 minutes he was preaching at the church because he's anointed to preach. And he took issue with this song. In fact, I think he knew the author of the song. And so he had like affection, like friendship for the author of the song. But he was going like, but I wish he would have said, you thought of your glory above all. Because that's, of course, that's the way Vodi leans, he thinks that way. And we all think that way, really.
Yeah.
It is God's glory above all.
And that's what I was talking about even before. And that was the problem with, I forgot which song we were talking about, but that's the same thing that I was talking about where I think it was What a Beautiful Name, where it's like people will say, oh, it sounds like you're making it as if everything was for us as opposed to God's glory.
Right.
That's kind of
Yeah. So it's like making these statements, these bold, unapologetic statements in a song in order to highlight an aspect of the gospel that is so rich and so good or so comforting, and so worshipful to say, and not explaining it, not couching it with other good theology and all this stuff. And so left on its own, it can make it sound like it's to the exclusion of something else. Like that Jesus coming and dying on a cross was not for the glory of God, which none of us would say.
Yeah,
of course we all believe all of this ultimately is for the glory of God. If Jesus doesn't come and die for us, which we say all the time, we don't say, hey, Jesus died on a cross for his glory, ... for you. We say, but of course he died on the cross for his glory because it was to redeem a people, and so that every knee would bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father.
Yeah.
But he died for us.
Yeah.
On the way to glorifying his name. So I don't know. It's another one of those things where I'm like, I don't really have a problem with it, but I get it.
Yeah, I've heard there's actually a documentary I was watching that talked about that song because it was talking about kind of how the westernized, like American church kind of goes away from the gospel in some ways. And they were also kind of making the argument that this song is kind of like, oh, they're making it seem like God just thought of us over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I can hear that as a way that some people can hear it, but I think once again, I think that's more so a fear of misinterpretation. I think I like the way that you said it, Michael, where it's like if somebody just reads the Bible, then they can figure out kind of what the song is going for. But I think it presupposes this idea that the only people that know what they're talking about are the people that are in the pulpit, like preaching, and that the people sitting in the congregation are just kind of like blank slates that don't have any reference information and don't have like their own kind of discoveries. I think that, it's one of those things where God thinking of us and God loving us is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of why he's so glorious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the psalm. It's like, oh, who is man that you would think of me?
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm sure that's one of those things that sentiment that when they were making that song comes from, is like, wow, you're this big, amazing God. You're infinite. You're omnipotent. You didn't need us, but instead you wanted us. You thought about us and you said, you know what? This is something that I want to restore. I think that, you know, yeah, that's like a more of a sensitivity thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So on this one, I agree. So I mean, I say thumbs up. I'm okay with this. The rest of the song really, I think, teaches the message well, and so it's really just more extreme language to say, like, Jesus does love his bride. He's willing to sacrifice himself for it. Like, that's real. Yeah, technically above all.
I know.
Yeah.
Above the glory. Okay.
That is the,
I
that
don't,
is the part.
but that's not what's being conveyed. Like, it's,
I don't think that's the true
I'm going
sentiment.
into it knowing obviously the glory of God is number one. I'm trying to think of a context where somebody doesn't believe that and sings this song and then is like confused by it. I don't know that that's there. Maybe it is.
The way that whenever I hear that song, the way that I think of it is like him saying above all isn't saying, oh, this was the priority. It's almost like, you know, when you're talking to a friend and you're like, oh, and they did this, and then on top of that, they did this. Like, that's kind of like, that's how I read into it whenever I heard this song growing up. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, and then on top of all this, all these other things that you do, you thought about us, you know? So, like, that's something that you kind of add to it. Then again, I don't know if that's a stretch. It could be. But
okay, so I actually will admit, I will admit I have a little reserve when I think about like their words mean something. I don't want to say words don't mean anything. Like you do have to have a level of discretion. So now you guys are making me rethink if I should thumbs. Man, this song is good though in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the issue.
it's so true in so many ways.
Once
like,
again, the parameter is: do you think that this is a song that you would play at church as part of worship?
Right.
Corporate worship.
Without a sermon following it up to explain the controversy.
I would do it with a song before and after about the glory of God.
That's cheating, bro.
So that's a thumbs down.
That's a thumbs up.
Like
I would do it.
You would do it. Okay.
I say yes. I'm thumbsing. This is the one where I'm like, if I could do this, I would. But I'm gonna go up still.
Okay. I think for the same reason that the Reckless one, I said thumbs down. I would say thumbs down on this also.
Okay.
Because I feel like it just kind of like when you said it earlier, when you said above all, you know, I mean, that's an emphatic statement, very clear. It doesn't apologize for what it says. And to me, I'm just like, it just makes me uncomfortable enough that I'm like, there's a million good songs. There's a million great songs. I would probably avoid it. So I'm just going to go on record as saying thumbs down, even though for me personally, I can sing the song and I can worship in spirit and in truth and be happy with it. But I wouldn't do it in church. Even if I was like explaining it, couching it with other songs and all that stuff, maybe. But if it was just like play the song, then probably not.
For the same reasons, I would say. For the same reasons, I would say that's why it would be a thumbs down corporately.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Reckless Love because he doesn't actually make an absolute statement. That's different because he doesn't make an absolute statement. This one is making more of an absolute statement. It's like when you say to your wife, you do this all the time.
Okay. Yeah,
You're not supposed to say that.
Right. Yeah.
So, man, if I play this in a few weeks at church or something, like, don't hate me. I'm just kidding. I'm not. There are a bunch of other songs that I like better. This isn't really one of my favorite worship songs, so
that is the thing. Too.
I'm actually okay with going thumbs down on this one.
Okay, so you.
I'm
swapped.
changing. I'm swapping. I'm gonna go thumbs down.
I'll probably go thumbs down too if we're going corporate. Also, I think here's a thumbs down visually so it can be documented. But I am thinking too that the argument also is that there's so many better songs, I guess, that say kind of the same thing. And I guess that's also another thing to think about. It's like, this is a song where I'm like, all right, for me, it kind of treads on the line. But because I feel like I could find another song that could illustrate what that song's illustrating.
Yeah, the
better
language, there's
without
gospel language, but
Yeah.
a lot of the language is not even as that identifiable. Like a rose trampled on the ground, it kind of makes sense, but we don't really
Yeah.
throw roses on the ground. Yeah, so it's one you can do without. That's not super impactful necessarily, and it's using that absolute statement,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm like, I think Reckless Love is a lot more impactful song that doesn't have an absolute statement, even though it has maybe a kind of uncomfortable word. So
Okay.
I'm thumbs down on that one, actually. So,
Okay.
okay. So we've all gone thumbs down on one. Wow.
I feel so
Wow.
bad.
I didn't
though,
think this
for
would
that.
happen.
Yeah, that does feel bad.
I-
And
it feels
Michael
bad.
W. sang it, and he's, it's Michael W. Smith,
It's the
man.
dub.
Like,
Man,
Can't thumbs down.
we
the
love you,
dub.
Michael.
No, I know.
seems like, yeah.
And that's probably a good. This is probably a good point to say because we all gave it thumbs down. To just reiterate, we're not giving thumbs down to any churches who love the song, the
Yeah.
artist who wrote it.
It's like not that you're not saved because you sing this
No.
song.
Yeah,
like,
it's
no,
not-
it's not
it's not.
that.
No, I wouldn't call it heretical.
No.
Nothing like that. It's just like, is it great? And it feels like every song we're singing comes down to a phrase or even just one word.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing we're giving thumbs up or thumbs down to is the controversial phrase or word, not the heart behind it or the person behind it
Yeah.
or anything like that, or even the whole song.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we finally gave all thumbs down to a song.
Yeah.
It happened.
Brutal.
So I'm going to come in this one. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this one. Okay. So Creed,
Creed,
which
the
is
band?
no.
Oh, okay.
The song Creed, which is Rich Mullins wrote it, right?
Okay.
It's the Apostles' Creed.
Wow.
So this is a deep doctrinal statement.
Yes. Okay, I know where you're going.
He descended into hell, and on the third day he rose again. This is in the Apostles' Creed, and
John-
it's saying in the song.
Hang on, Michael. If you could have seen John's face when you opened up the Apostles' Creed for criticism, like, are we going to thumbs up or thumbs down the Apostles' Creed? He was like ready to run.
I'm somewhat hopeful
oh,
that
no.
nobody has gotten this far into the podcast.
Well, no, because
I'm just kidding.
well, the reason my face was like that was because I think there actually is controversy about this idea that Jesus went to hell
Mm-hmm.
and then came back.
Is that where you're going?
I think that's kind of the
That's
thing, right?
yeah. The controversy is doctrinally there's a divide about Jesus' occupation during the 3 days
Yeah,
that he
descending
was.
into
yeah.
darkness.
And so basically, there's a few different views, and I mean, everybody, I think, mostly has come to the point like maybe it's not meeting the eternal lake of fire hell, but like, the soul prison or whatever, the
Yep.
souls were in before. So, but there is a divide on this issue of what Jesus was actually doing and does this actually work with the gospel and all that stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, we don't have to have a huge doctrinal conversation. We may not be able to thumbs up or thumbs down this one in this episode without having John Piper on or
Yeah.
something.
Oh,
But
yeah.
That's tough.
I would say though, but what I would say though is that I think for that reason, I think that makes it a thumbs down song. Because once again, we were like, okay, is this a song that you can just play and you not have to explain or not have to go into a whole thing about? Like, is this a song that you can play and people will get it?
well,
You
and
know?
this is a deeply doctrinal song. Like the whole
Yeah.
point is to say doctrine of the church, the whole
Yeah.
Right.
doctrinal script, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Before we get too far into it, because it is very didactic. I mean, this song is and he does an amazing job of having flow, and it's artistic and musical and
Yeah.
very didactic, very theologically full and rich. So can you read it to us?
The whole song?
Man, even if not the whole song, what's the kind of the controversial part of it and maybe the couple lines around it?
I believe, okay, because I guess it has more to do with Jesus. So, because it has one on God the Father and the Holy Spirit, but this one was in the Jesus stanza. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to hell. The third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended to heaven and is seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From there he will come to judge the living and the dead. So that's
good. Thanks for that. So so like you said, there's controversy theologically in the church about did Jesus descend into hell?
Yeah.
And we're obviously not going to solve that controversy
So really,
on this podcast.
I think you're going to sing this song if you agree with this theology. And you're
Okay.
not if you don't, probably, right?
Yeah, probably so. I bet that one line would keep you from singing the song
It
if
raises-
you disagreed with it.
Well, and I think it also it raises a lot of questions, I feel like. For me initially,
Which actually is good. I mean, you're raising
Which can be
questions in
good.
people
Raising
to
questions
ask,
is
hey,
good.
what is
Yeah.
this? What is
Yeah.
this?
which can be good if it's, raising
Maybe
the
more
right
in a
questions.
teaching context, though, than a worship context. I don't know.
Yeah. That's tough. That's why I would say this is one that would probably end up, which is funny because we sing the creed, which basically takes, because in that one, I think the line they use is descended into darkness, he rose in glorious light.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I feel like saying descended into darkness usually gets more accepted because saying darkness is more vague.
Yeah, you
When-
could just mean the tomb.
You could just mean, the
Death.
tomb, like death, like he experienced that.
Yeah.
But when you say, he descended into hell,
Right.
it's kind of like,
What do you mean?
Well, hell and Sheol and stuff can be a little bit
So that's
ambiguous sometimes in
Yeah.
language, depending on who you're talking to from history, who you're reading. Like
yeah.
Hades, all that stuff can seem a little bit
Yeah.
like
Right.
which one are you actually talking about?
Right. Yeah. So,
So-
I mean, I personally would say I don't believe Jesus descended into hell. Okay. If we're talking about hell as
You
in
mean the lake of
place-
fire hell?
Yeah, lake of fire,
okay.
hell, eternal punishment, hell. I wouldn't say Jesus descended into hell the way we mean hell when we read our
Yeah.
Bibles.
Yeah.
But I do believe he descended into Hades or Sheol, like the place of the dead.
Yeah.
With Abraham's bosom and the chasm and
Yes. And those faithful of God who were counted righteous through their belief pre-Christ, I do believe Jesus went and freed them and brought them with himself when he ascended. And so so that now all those faithful are with him in heaven where they weren't in heaven before. They were in the place of the dead,
Yeah.
Sheol. So did he descend into darkness? Yes. Did he descend into hell? Not, I wouldn't say the way we mean hell. Maybe
maybe not in the way that we mean hell. I think the best illustration I've ever seen is Jesus experiencing separation from God when he took upon sin upon himself.
Why have you forsaken me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like him experiencing that. And there was an illustration where it showed how, it was God the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. They were together in unity. And in that moment, it was like because he put upon sin upon himself, and God is like not in the presence of sin, saying that, him experiencing that separation, that was the kind of the best illustration I've seen to describe that. Would I say that means that he went to hell? I mean, yeah, I guess that is the controversy, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if you're preaching on, if Colossians 3 or Ephesians, or just Colossians 1 and then Ephesians something where it kind of has some verses about this stuff, it totally makes sense because then you can explain it.
Yeah.
But if it's like, hey, we're going to use this as a regular worship song, oh man.
I think just because of our understanding of hell, like when we our modern translations, which there's some very good ones, and they're translating hell, they will translate it differently from Sheol or Hades,
Yeah.
or the grave, and we mean something very specific when we say hell. There's a lot of theology behind where is hell, what is hell.
And a lot of people in the congregation are going to superimpose that meaning.
Exactly.
Like, hey,
Yeah.
hell is the lake of fire.
Exactly.
That's what you think.
Yeah.
So I would say if I was going to sing this song, I would want to change that one word, hell, because of how that word is heard, how we understand where hell is and what it is theologically. I would want to change that one. But I wouldn't want to remove the idea
This
that
is such a
Jesus-
beautiful song.
I
It's
know.
you want to do it with a different word, but that's against the rules.
I know
so.
that's against the rules.
Yeah, you guys got me on What a Beautiful Name saying I had the thumbs down when I changed the verse.
Oh,
It hurts.
oh, it hurts.
It's a tough one.
It's
but
a no
it's gotta
because
be
of how
done.
didactic it is, and the superimposed ideas about hell.
Yeah, not because
specifically.
it's didactic, but because it's so clearly trying to teach something.
It's teaching something, and I don't think we're thinking the right way about hell specifically. And it's the apostles. It's not like, this is not a modern songwriter trying to convey something that's kind of ambiguous. It's more like this is doctrine. I could see a lot of people in the congregation, even learned biblical people, conflating that with Jesus went to the lake of fire. That's why I'm thumbs down on it.
Okay.
But
And when you say this is doctrine, the song is trying to teach doctrine,
yeah.
and not that the Apostles' Creed itself is scripture, but that
Right.
it's trying to compile a lot of scriptural truth into these clear statements that are
statement
doctrinal statements.
That are doctrinal statements.
So I think for that reason too, I would super painfully give it thumbs down.
It hurts.
Yeah. And like for me, it really is. The thing that does it for me is the fact that the ideas surrounding what it's saying is going to create a distraction that's going to disrupt worship for people. And I think that for me, that would be the part that I would be caring about more so, because even if I totally agreed with it, I'd be like, okay, but if there's going to be so many people that are going to hear that line and it's going to take them out of what they should be focusing on, which is encountering the Lord, then to me, that's why I'd be like, okay, well, then I'd rather not do it.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. It's
Cool.
like, wait, what would you say?
Yeah.
You know,
So we just thumbs downed.
don't say it out loud like that. Don't do that. You're not. You
This
can't-
is a podcast, Patrick. It's meant to make waves.
Guys, you know what? Everyone, we don't make the rules. You don't see people. You don't. See
I made the rules.
You
Sorry,
don't
John.
see churches. Well, you made the rules, but I mean, like as far as the Apostles' Creed being used in churches, you don't see a lot of churches using it, probably for that reason.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we got two more,
okay.
and this next one, to be honest, I think we're really going to all agree on this. But I've seen a lot of controversy about it online. It's from In Christ Alone.
Oh.
Okay. It says, till on that cross, as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied.
Okay.
The controversy is contingents that tend to be maybe a little more liberal and stuff. They don't like the word wrath. They think that,
Right.
it says God is love. And so we need to focus on that. So like more of a, what if it's, the love of God is personified or something there instead of the wrath of God is satisfied.
Okay.
And just so you know, contextually, the writers of the song, the writers of the song were asked to make concessions to adjust this possibly for churches. And they said, no, we're not changing this. Like, this is the gospel. So I'm going to say straight out, this is the gospel.
It is.
And if you don't believe in the wrath of God, you don't believe the gospel. And you're not saved. And we love you and we want you to get saved.
Right.
That's just a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, to me, it runs into that issue of a lot of the motivation behind wanting to change it isn't one that I think is necessarily edifying or glorifying. To me, I feel like it's more like, oh, we want to change it because we want people to be like, what I'm imagining is the reason is because we feel like when you talk about the wrath of God, like people are just going to be turned off by that. Oh, wrathful? Like, oh, God, why is God so wrathful? And then it's like, okay, well, if you understand the gospel, you can understand why. But like but I think it's the idea of trying to make the gospel more digestible by taking out the more uncomfortable parts of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like if you take out any of it, then it's just then that's just incorrect.
Right.
Sure.
Like this isn't like wanting to change this. It's not like the case that we said before where it's like, oh, like yet not I, but through Christ. Oh, this is just emphasizing one part of the gospel. It's not necessarily excluding one. Wanting to change this is actually an effort to exclude that part of the gospel, which is
Yeah.
the reason why I'm like, okay, no.
Right.
If you want to make a
that's
song,
good.
if you want to make a song that emphasizes the love of God and how what he did was from like out of his love, then sure. But to have a song that has this line in it and to say we need to take that out because we just don't like how that sounds, it's like, well, yeah, nobody wants to think that they're broken and sinful, but that's just the truth.
And deserve wrath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah, that's well said. I would say Romans 3
Yeah.
would really affirm this song, that God put Jesus forward as a propitiation by his blood to be received by faith. This was to show God's righteousness, and even Romans again, that Jesus became sin so that we might become the righteousness of God.
yeah,
There's this issue of like sin and righteousness, and that God has wrath against sin.
yeah,
And that was the problem. That is the problem of humanity, and that Jesus dealt with it by his own blood. So he received the wrath of God that was due to us because of our sinfulness, and because of his act of love and mercy and laying his life down. He received all that wrath, therefore we can receive his righteousness as a gift.
yeah,
And that is, as you guys have said, that is the gospel.
yeah.
You can't remove that notion that God is wrathful against sin, that we deserved, and that Jesus did something about it so that we would be set free from that
Yeah.
penalty. That is the foundation of the gospel.
Well, it's the whole thing where Jesus is talking about loving your enemies. Ultimately, the reason he talks about that is because, oh, sure, that's like, it's pretty like cool advice. But at the same time, that's exactly what he did.
Right.
That's exactly what God did.
He personified that in the most ultimate way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know, someone needs to understand that to really get the gravity,
Yeah,
to truly understand the gravity of what the gospel is.
sure.
How
Yeah.
can you talk about how God's love is reckless without realizing
Absolutely.
that he totally
That's true.
You know what I mean?
And the purpose of the song, it's a hymn that's trying to explain the whole gospel, really. Like it's verse by verse, it's trying to explain the gospel. So it has portions about, it's like, here on the love of Christ I stand. It has the love portion in there. So if you don't have the wrath portion, it's less accenting one aspect because you're trying to do that. And it's more like, hey, I'm actually trying to take away from the gospel here in this song.
Yeah.
That's what you would be doing. And
Right. I
so-
think we're all on the same page.
so yes, absolutely.
Thumbs up.
Sung it a million times. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
That's a classic one. There's some songs that are just eternal.
They're just untouchable.
This one I'm actually going to call the bonus round.
The bonus round, is it like lightning round? Like we have to do like really quick takes? That would be fun.
This one, okay.
No talking
This is
ourselves
I'm
into
gonna
our
say what
position.
song it is. Maybe you guys can guess what line it is.
Okay.
It is How He Loves.
Oh yes.
Oh.
This one, well, I think I referenced another line. I don't.
You
think it's the
referenced another one, but not this
but
one.
Not the one that you're
Is
talking
the line going to be like, wasn't there some version that was like a sloppy wet
Yes.
kiss?
Yes. Heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss is the original version.
Yeah.
And then the abridged version is Unforeseen Kiss.
Yeah. Okay, so my my very hot take on this is heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss. Is that what we're dealing with? Not unforeseen kiss? Are we dealing with sloppy wet?
I feel like
yeah.
I think that it's. I think whether you're sloppy wet or unforeseen, I think the intention of the line remains the same.
The intention, I think, is the
Okay.
same.
I think
Sloppy
it's
wet
the
is just
same.
hilarious. Like
Sloppy wet is
every
just,
time we saw that line when I was worship leading, we
Yeah.
look at each other and start giggling. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
I
you
think-
start laughing.
I think the reason people changed it is because sloppy wet kiss just sounds nasty.
It's just weird.
It just sounds too teenage. Honestly, it just So I mean that would be probably my criticism of the line is that it feels a bit silly, irreverent, almost even. It's like sloppy wet kiss. That's like that's just honestly it's just uncomfortable for me. That's just like awkward language for me. It's not that I think the gospel like heaven kissing earth, like this intimate intersection between God's eternal reality and human existence. Yes, it is like that. To me, though, the line just kind of like, you almost miss how beautiful that is by calling it sloppy wet.
Yeah, that's like a negative, right?
Honestly, and sloppy wet, when I imagine a sloppy wet kiss, that's not a...
I don't like to do that. I don't like to
It's
imagine
not
that.
positive. It's negative.
That's not a kiss of, well, I was going to say, it's not a kiss of love. That's a kiss of like, something else. Like, well, and I think this goes back. I think you guys did another podcast episode. Yeah. Where you guys were talking about the language that people use in worship music. And I think that this would probably be one that I think proponents of, using like relational, emotional language is not good, because I think you had brought it up because it tends to lead to like more sexual connotations of Jesus.
Like romantic kind of language.
Yeah, and I feel like when I think of sloppy wet kiss, to me, I'm like, that's like to me, that's almost, I could see why somebody could see it as, that's more of like lustful language. Because when I think of a loving kiss, I don't think sloppy and wet.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually it's like, yeah.
So maybe unforeseen would work and seem more reverent,
which
and
is probably why
better.
people changed it.
But sloppy
like
wet
that
doesn't
change.
make sense.
I think that's I think that was a really good revision. After that, I really liked that.
Yeah.
Then because you can still communicate the idea of that like intimate kiss between heaven and earth and all. You still catch it without being like sloppy wet.
I love this song, and when I first heard it, I heard the Unforeseen Kiss version. I didn't even know the sloppy wet kiss version
that happened
existed.
to me too.
And what happened was the college I went to, Liberty, John Mark McMillan, actually he came and did a concert at Liberty, and he did this song, and he said the sloppy wet kiss line, and I was like, what? That's not right.
Nah, bro.
Oh man, I love it.
Wait, you love sloppy wet?
No.
Okay.
I'm thumbs down on sloppy wet. I agree.
Thumbs down, sloppy
Thumbs
wet.
down, sloppy wet. Thumbs
down,
up,
sloppy
unforeseen.
wet.
Yes, the revision I like.
The revision's
Unforeseen
good.
is thumbs up. Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I think we had some really good insights.
Yes.
And y'all just really, helped give a bit of clarity. And I'm really glad that you guys changed my mind on a song, I think, or so.
I do want to say, just kind of like as a closing thought about this stuff, because people hold their songs dearly.
That's true.
Yeah.
And like music, I think by God's design, music means a lot to us. It touches us in a different way. I could tell something to you and you could hear it and even receive it. But if something is sung and it's, it's different. Like the Bible even talks about God singing, and certainly the church is commanded to sing, So there's something really important about this issue, and we are not like the heart behind what we're doing here is not to judge people's hearts.
Yeah.
Or to just throw things out, throw songs out because we don't like a word and like, oh, that artist is trash or not. Like that's not the spirit of this. The spirit is like trying to discern what's most helpful for the church, and these words, a word or a phrase, like does it do a good job of saying what it was trying to say? Those kinds of things, so that prayer and worship is just elevated and unhindered and there's no distraction. Like sloppy wet distracts. So I that's the heart behind it, is just the spirit of unity and agreement and love and just wanting worship to be pure and true and all those things, not a spirit of criticism or harshness or casting anybody out or anything like that. I just felt like it was important to just reiterate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I was saying before, don't choose division over these songs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
this is not divide stuff at all.
It's true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. As a reminder, the Prayer Culture Podcast is a ministry of Two or More, which is a crowd-funded ministry. So if you enjoy this content, please check out our website and giving page listed in the description. Also, when you have a second, hit the like and subscribe button.